Now, I've shown you how to do trim paths before. I'm going to make a change this back to 8-bit. Go here. I'll call this paint effect. Let's wait for my computer to catch up. All right, let me purge it. It's running a little slow. All right. So we've learned about trim paths. I'm going to turn off this fill, turn on stroke, make a bright color, sure. So there's the stroke. And if I go add trim paths, I can choose to animate on the start or the end. The end is the last point I drew. That's a trim path. So we've already covered that. There's another way of getting that look. And I suggest you all follow along for this. So that way, if you don't understand something, you can ask right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a solid layer. And I'm just going to make it blue. Hit OK. And I'm going to give you all a moment to draw your solid layer. And under the effects, we're going to add stroke. There's a lot of different strokes you can add. But for this one, we're just going to do stroke. We're throwing a stroke effect on the layer. And under the paint style, we're going to set it to on transparent. What that means is if I've got another solid behind it, I'll make it a light blue. Look about there. That just means you'll see the background below it. So if there's a texture or whatever, you'll see it because it's going to be painting onto a transparent layer. So here's our stroke effect. And we're going to draw a new path. So you got to make sure the solid layer is selected. And I'm just going to draw like a little squiggly line down the screen. And I'll make my brush size 200. Let's see what happens if I have on original. Okay, we'll do on transparent. There we go. And I had to turn on mask 1 once I drew it. Now I can see it. So once everybody has that, just say yes. You have to turn on mask 1 up here at the top drop down to show the mask that you drew. And I'm going to set my brush hardness to 100. I made my brush hardness 100, so it's a nice hard edge. I changed the spacing to 0. Now you'll notice there's start and end. And we already know from trim paths, that's what that's going to do. So I'm going to start here and animate just the end. And I'll go, let's say 2 seconds and make it 100%. So it's drawing on. And as it's drawing on, I'm going to have it start drawing off, like right about here. So I'm going to click the start stopwatch. Wait till it's off the screen. And then set that to 100. So now it's going to draw itself on and draw itself off. Just like that. I'll show you. So I hit U for my keyframes. First I did the end. That's the last point. I went from 0 to 100. And then I picked a spot where it was on the screen, pretty dense. And I said, now I'm going to have it draw off, which is the start. So I went from 0 to 100 with that. Does that help?
Yeah.
No problem. All right. So next, I'm going to add a new layer, a new solid layer. Layer, new solid. I'll call this Fractal. Color doesn't matter. And I'm going to hit OK. And in effects, I'm going to add fractal noise right here on there. Now, a fractal is any image that was then duplicated 200% and the opacity changed a little bit less. And then that layer was duplicated and made 200% bigger and the opacity changed a little bit less. And then that layer was duplicated 200% and the opacity was changed a little bit less until you get this dense fog like that you can pass through. Hopefully that helps explain it a little bit better. But so you think about it as going back in space. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this fractal as a displacement map to make our stroke look more painterly or like a liquid. So the first thing we're going to need to do is increase the contrast on our fractal. Because white will do 100% of something and black will do nothing, or the opposite. Depends upon what you do with your maps. And values of gray will either do a positive or negative thing based upon how much white or black is inside of them. I'm going to turn up my brightness a little bit. I'm just going blind here. Okay, so the water is going downwards. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the time expression to my evolution. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click that stopwatch, type in time, asterisk, and I'll try 200 and then click out that field. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to do a higher number. I want a little bit more change than that. Let's try 500. Click out. That's better. All right, so I've got some constant motion happening. Next, I gotta say, where's this going? Well, that will be my offset turbulence. I'm gonna want it to go down. So down would be adding to the Y. So I'm going to go to the beginning of this layer, go a little bit past, and let's have this go down a whole lot. So if I add to it, I'm gonna make it like 10 times. Let's see how fast that's going. You just do it by eye. I'm going to drop down my preview res. Okay, I can live with that. Looks like, water flowing downwards. So we're starting to get there. I'm going to hit save because Adobe products crash a whole lot. Are there any questions? Like, I keyframed the down because the fluid's moving down, and I've got the evolution changing over time just to add some life and some interest to this fractal. So my next step is I'm just going to pre-compose this fractal layer, because that's normally the best way to keep your effects working properly. So let's call this Fractal PC, and always click Move All Attributes in. Very rarely will you not do that, but sometimes you don't do that. Now, I'm going to click the eyeball icon on my fractal to hide it, because I don't need to see it. It's going to be invisible. But it's going to be driving the displacement of our stroke. So, with my stroke solid, I'm going to call this stroke so we can see what's what. Okay, that's my stroke layer. I'll call this background. Got my stroke layer selected, and I'm going to put a displacement map effect on it. I'm going to leave this up for everyone to see. So you can see what's going to happen. I'm going to move my playhead forward a little bit. And everyone can see the stroke, correct? Okay, so this displacement map needs to know what we're using as our map, and it's the fractal. So right here where it says displacement map layer, I'm going to choose Fractal PC, and I'm also going to use effects and masks. So now, if I increase the horizontal or vertical, now we can see that it's displacing it. And already it looks more painterly, splotchy, and liquidy, and less like that boring geometric shape we had. We always try and push our work the furthest. So I'm going to teach you a technique called look at this, edit that. Okay, here's how it works. You're going to need to double click on your Fractal pre-comp and open up the Fractal and select the layer that has the Fractal on inside it. Are you in 8 bits per channel or 32 bits per channel? If you go to your project panel, down here at the bottom by the trash can, if you hold down Alt or Option and click on 8 BPC, it'll change to 16, 32, back to 8 again. Make sure you're at 8 bits per channel, then see if that helps. Here is how look at this, edit that works. I'm in my Fractal pre-comp. I've got my Fractal layer selected, and here's the Fractal effect in my effects control panel. Right next to the words effects control is a padlock. I'm going to click that padlock on. And I'm going to show you why we're doing this, and I'm teaching you look at this, edit that. We're going to go back to our paint effect composition, and you'll notice now I've still got my fractal noise effect up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go big and show you. I'm going to change the contrast. And look, it's changing over here. And I'm going to lower it. Now I can see in real time what changing my fractal does to the displacement map. Does everybody understand that? This is how you dial in your look and work like a professional. Look at this, edit that. So I can now adjust my fractal while seeing how it influences the displacement map. This is how you really get the look you want. Just a little bit of patience. I'm even going to try a different type of fractal, and I can see what it's doing very quickly and very easily. Try dynamic. Let's try spline just for the fun of it. And remember, you want different looks for different motions. It looks like the darker I set my brightness, the more rough my look is getting. I'm going to up my contrast a little bit, but not too much, because then I start losing all that fine detail. So it's like between 300 and 400 is what's working for my settings here. Now I'm going to drop my complexity down to 3. Nah, I'm going to make it 9. I'm going to make it larger. And that's giving me more of a mess and a roughness to it. And then if I want, I could twirl down my transform and I could make the scale of the fractal larger if I want to see less roughness. Or I could scale down, make it even smaller so I'm seeing more of the fractal so it looks like spray paint. You see how adjusting the scale of your fractal greatly influences how it works with the displacement map? It's all about dialing in your look. This is how to work like a pro. What's going to happen if I change my blending mode? See, that's going to influence it too. The default was normal. I'll keep it there for now. And there we go. I've got a much better look to my fractal. Here's the one thing to remember. When you've got the look you want, click off on the padlock so it opens up again. This way you can get back to your layers and make whatever changes you want and get out of look at this, edit that mode. And when you've got it looking the way you want, just click on the stroke layer again. I'm going to pretend this is water flowing down the screen. So for that, I select my stroke layer. I'm in the stroke effect. Color, I'm going to give it a more watery look. Like find a blue I like. Do about here. You can pick whatever blue you like. There's mine. I'm going to go to the displacement. I'm going to add a little bit more maximum vertical displacement to it. Like that, in that direction. So that it looks like as it's falling down, there's flecks falling behind it. Like little droplets of water. Especially down at the bottom. That looks gorgeous. That's the look I want. And I'm just going to go to full res and take a look at it real quick to see it more accurately. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's what I want. I changed my maximum vertical displacement to a positive number. I'm very happy with that. So it's another way of fine-tuning. Okay, so I've got my color. Now, I'm going to hit save. And remember what I've always taught you. If you've got one thing done, can you use it to push your work further? So I'm going to duplicate my stroke layer. And I'm going to make it a little bit brighter of watercolor. So that's my B for brightness. And I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. Hit OK. And I'll move forward a little bit. Now I'm going to make the brush size under the stroke smaller. So now I'm seeing the darker water with the lighter water. So that's something. It's pushing it a bit further. I'm going to go into a full for my preview res. Now, another thing I can do to easily push this is adjust my maximum and vertical, the horizontal and vertical displacement. Not too much, but just a little bit. That's going to randomize it enough to give it its own life. Like such. It's not perfectly following the first layer, which is what I want. And I'll make it a little bit thinner. All right. And I'll do one final duplication. And this one will be, oops. I want to duplicate my stroke layer. I was clicked on the wrong thing. I'll make this even brighter. And I'll make it even thinner for the brush size. And I'll adjust the displacement even more. Like such. And let's see what we got. Parts of it are a little choppy there. I could fine tune that if I want. But overall, I'm getting something pretty interesting. There we go. And again, I would fine tune that to get the look I want. So let's push this one step further and then we'll move on. I'm going to take all three of my stroke layers, pre-compose them, and I'll call it water. Hit move all attributes. Now I'm going to draw right on the letter. I'll just do a letter I lowercase. We'll pretend this is our logo. Like such. I'm going to place it below the water. And one thing I could do is right here when it's fully covered, I could just trim that layer with Alt and the P, the bracket next to the P. So now it looks like it was revealed on that way. That's one thing I could do. Another thing I could do is set this to, let's try a Luma Matte, just for the fun of it. See, we're getting that effect. So it's like, if I wanted this to stay on, I would not animate the start stopwatch. See how we're getting a pretty interesting effect happening there? That's with Luma, because Luma works off of gray values. If I switch it to alpha, see, you get a nice inky reveal and removal. So I'm just showing you how you can create something and then use it for multiple things later on down the road. Any questions on that?